Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Baseball MacJustice. Co-host B-Mac Redbeard. Do you see B-Mac there? Over there is my main man, Ice Mac. How are you doing tonight, Ice? Doing very good. All right. Right below us, you see our individual, our Twitter names, our Twitch channels. Go ahead and give IceMac70 a follow right now. He has got his own Twitch channel. And we're going to get things started for you. We will try our best to interact with you in chat tonight. But this is a podcast. We do have quite a show planned for you. We're going to start off with some news and notes. And while I'm doing that, why don't I go ahead and tell you what we're going to be working on tonight. There's our on deck. What's on deck for us? We've got a little bit of news and notes. There's some stuff going on with the Cleveland Indians logo, the Chief Wahoo logo. We're going to touch on that. Secondly, we're going to be probably in between, we're going to be talking about free agency, who's out there, who might they be looking to sign with, and hopefully we can get some action going on the hot stove here pretty quickly. And then we're going to get into some of the negotiations going on about speeding up the game of play, and whether or not that's a good thing for Major League Baseball. The bulk of tonight's show, though, we're going to be talking about MLB The Show 18 and the different kinds of dream cards that we would love to see. Anything off the top there, Ice, that grabs your attention?
Well, actually, the one thing you had brought up about the speed-up rules.
The speed-up rules.
Actually, no, I'm sorry, not the speed-up rules, about the free agency.
Yeah.
There was a report out today that a lot of players were talking about going on strike.
Player strike, huh?
Yes, because of the free agency, because of the slowness of free agency.
Okay.
Found out very quickly that it wouldn't be in their best decision to do that because it would be not voiding, but it would go against their contracts. So there's not going to be any type of walkouts. But the one thing I can say is it's actually nice to see a lot of guys, under contract that are defending and sticking up for a lot of guys that are free agents.
True. And while we're on the subject, I think free agency has been a little bit of a source of frustration probably from both sides. You've got, here's the rub about free agency. You've got guys who are either in their prime or starting the downhill run of their careers.
Yeah.
And these are the guys that are asking for multi-year and many millions of dollars based not necessarily on what they're projected to do, but kind of what they have already done in their careers. And there's the rub, as you want to go out and potentially sign a guy like Yu Darvish.
Right.
And you've seen numbers, I've seen numbers thrown out there that suggest that he's holding out for a 7-year deal. The guy is in his early 30s, and I think that's probably at least 3, if not 4 years too many for a guy like Darvish who's had some injury concerns. I wouldn't be willing to go any more than 4, and I'm not sure I'd be willing to go a 4th year on a guy like Darvish.
Especially after the season he had last year with LA at the end of the year. He seemed like he was on a little bit of a downslope. It'd be a little questionable on how fast you want to spend something on Darvish like that.
Exactly. So that's a little piece of free agency. Why don't we move and talk about Chief Wahoo? The Cleveland Indians logo. It was reported earlier this week that Major League Baseball and the Cleveland Indians have reached an agreement. I should have had the darn logo up there. But they've reached an agreement starting next year, the 2019 season, that the cartoonish Chief Wahoo, the beloved Chief Wahoo, is no longer going to be used by the Cleveland Indians Baseball Club, and kind of struck people right down the middle. I know there's a lot of Cleveland Indians fans that say, "Hey, look, this is a tradition. We've used it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a logo. It's a cartoon. It's not meant to disparage or degrade." And then there's the other side of it. This political correctness issue that seems to have progressively gone through over the last 20, 30 years and taking a look at different things and wanting to soften them up a little bit. I'm curious about your stance, Ice, on on Chief Wahoo and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for baseball.
I mean, it's hard to say on both sides. You know, I can understand where they're coming from as far as the quote unquote degrading part of it, stuff like that. But at the same time, it's also been something that's been in MLB for many, many years, and nobody's ever brought nothing up about it up until maybe the last 5 years, something like that. Even in the NFL, they're doing the same thing with the Redskins. You know, I personally would hate to see them lose the name. You know, it's everybody knows the team by that name. But you know, it's just, I guess either way, you still have to look at it from both sides.
Sure, yeah, and I don't know if they're discussing right now getting rid of the nickname Indians. I think on the table at least is making sure that the logo is removed from the caps and the jerseys for the 2019 season. And you know, one of the things that I happen to agree with is the opinion that baseball is going to have its All-Star game in Cleveland in 2019, and more than likely the commissioner's office of Rob Manfred put a little pressure on the city of Cleveland and said, if you want to keep the All-Star game, then you're going to have to play by our rules. And so it's an edict from the commissioner's office. And frankly, I don't see Roger Goodell of the NFL putting that kind of pressure on Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Washington Redskins, or right, the NCAA with teams that have all kinds of Native American nicknames, like Central Michigan Chippewas or the Florida State Seminoles, just the Utah Utes, just to name 3 off the top of my head.
Yeah. So, and I think the worst part of it is them being forced to do it. I think if it's something that they're going to do, they should do it for the right reason, not because they're being forced to do it.
I agree, and it's come across as a mutual decision, and I would question whether or not that's actually a mutual decision.
Yeah, I would disagree with the mutual.
Right. All right. As far as my thoughts on the logo, I've grown up with the logo. I know Indians fans grew up with the logo. I don't necessarily see it as something offensive. I see it as something that represents an image. And I don't have Native American background, so I can't speak for somebody who might take offense to that sort of thing. I do see it as athletics. I see it as professional baseball. I see it as a logo that represents their brand. And frankly, if the Indians or Major League Baseball don't think that represents their brand anymore, then I don't think that it's such a bad decision to make. But I'd also really hate to see them keep the Indians name and then stick with a block letter C or something even more generic than that. I'd like to see them be able to incorporate some sort of a Native American history that that those types of organizations can be proud of, and not feel that they're being disparaged by a logo that they may feel is outdated. And I'm not going to be in a position to tell them that they're wrong.
No, that's agreed.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Chief Wahoo, and the 2018 season, Chief Wahoo will be its last, and then that one can be retired. All right. So let's move on. Let's move on tonight to talking about the speed up rules. And I want to bring this up here. If you're not able to read it, I think you're able to, but if you're not able to, this is a screenshot of a tweet that Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, as well as MLB Network and all the other organizations that he works for, tweeted yesterday. He says MLB's latest pace of play proposal, per sources. He cites some sources here. They're talking about pitch clocks. They've had them at the minor league level for quite some time to try to work out how it would improve the pace of play. The latest proposal of the Major League Players Association is that if in 2018, they're not going to have a pitch clock this year. If games are 2 hours and 55 minutes or longer, they're going to implement an 18-second clock in Major League Baseball in 2019 with no runners on base, starting on May 1st. Now, why they wouldn't start at the beginning of the year, I don't know. they'll have a ball strike penalty if they exceed 18 seconds with nobody on base. In 2019, if the games are 2 hours and 50 minutes or longer, they're going to go with an additional 20-second clock in 2020 when runners are on base. So they're trying to phase it in, and they're trying to keep the length of game relatively reasonable and under 3 hours. First of all, I've got a couple of questions here for you, Ice, and I want to hear your thoughts. First of all, are the games too long to begin with? And second of all, if they are, do we really need to go and create rules and stipulations with penalties if you go over those certain rules?
Well, let me answer your question by asking you a question. If they're trying to make the game quicker, then why are they trying to bring back the reliever cart?
The reliever cart?
there was a report out today. I didn't get to research it that much, but they're supposed to be bringing back the bullpen reliever cart.
Jeez. Well,
now, why would you? First of all, I don't think they should ever got rid of it in the first place. That was one of the nice things of watching the game. You see the relievers come in. You know, you had some of the guys that would just sprint in. You had some of the guys who would just lollygag. They just take their time coming in. You had some guys that would come in by the bullpen cart. You know, the speeding up the game is not going to do anything to help the game. You know, if people find the game by watching baseball boring because they think it's too long, then they're never going to find it any better by speeding the game up. It's not that the game takes too long. It's just they can't. I feel a lot of people just can't keep up with watching the game.
So you're basically saying that if they're baseball fans, then if the game is 2 hours and 50 minutes, or if the game is 3 hours and 5 minutes, that 15-minute delta doesn't mean a damn thing to them.
No, I it showed it.
I totally agree with you in that regard.
You know, the game's been the same as far as time-wise and everything up until, again, a couple of years ago when everybody wants to decide they want to start changing things with the game. When something's not broke, you don't fix it. You know, it's been the same way for 100 years.
I mean, I would argue that the commissioner's office does think that it's broken, based on pace of play, based on time, and based on attendance being down. And you know, I don't know if I agree with the commissioner's office that the way to get people back into the stadium is to shave 15 minutes off of a game.
Well, I mean, part of the reason why attendance is down is because they're charging an arm and a leg for you to be able to come in, get something to drink, something to eat. And look, let's be honest, most people can't afford to go to a game every single day to root on their team. You know, what they're trying to do is completely opposite of what they should be doing.
Lowering ballpark prices, right?
Yeah.
Which is really tough to do when you've got the super agents asking for 7 years and $150 million for an aging superstar.
And that's where, you know, many of the issues lie because, you know, obviously these guys are asking for these contracts. The teams have to be able to make the money to pay them. And they have to be able to do it in a certain way. But that's also what happens when you don't have any type of salary cap in a sport. You know, and granted, yes, you know, football has salary cap. These guys get outrageous with salaries, and, you know, you're still paying an arm and leg just to go to a football game too. But, you know, it's the lack of people wanting to go to games and stuff like that doesn't have to do with the length of games. That's you know, my opinion. It's all price wise. It's what they're charging for stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's ease of access. You know, 162 games for your team in one season. There's 81 of them at home, and you can watch all 162 on your TV, on your tablet, on your phone, on the internet. Wherever you are these days, you can watch the game. You don't have to be there. I think going to the stadium and the ballpark now more than ever is an experience. And then that experience is to witness and be there live, as opposed to the experience of watching the game on the couch. And there is definitely value in going to a ballpark, but it's a whole evening experience for most everyone. It's not just a 3-hour ball game. It's commuting, it's spending money on the ticket, it's finding a way to get there, and then you got to come home too. So it is. Yeah. It's much more than just a 3-hour game experience, and that's not necessarily where I think they need to work on cutting down the time of the game, because traffic sucks and it's getting worse. I know in the Seattle area it's getting worse. I would imagine it's getting worse all over the country. It's not fun to go sit in traffic and be. Quick story before we move on to the next topic. A couple of years ago, my dad and my younger brother and my son and we were all going up to a Seattle, Texas game. It was a matinee game on a Sunday, and we were driving up I-5 to Seattle, and we were going to be an hour early. My dad got to my house at 7:30 in the morning for a 12:35 first pitch. You know what happened on the way there? Is a semi-truck turned over. It flipped over on I-5 and blocked 4 of the 5 lanes. And they couldn't do anything until they got a crane in place to pick up the container and get the thing out of the way. You know what? You know when we got into the stadium? The game was in the 7th inning.
Jesus.
And we were going to be there an hour early. It was one of the worst experiences of my life to know that we had bought tickets to be in the game, to be in the stadium, and we're listening to it on the radio. And Erasmo Ramirez was getting lit up by the Texas Rangers. Lit up, and we walked in to the stadium, and it was like 9-1 Texas. It was like, why don't we just go to the Seattle Aquarium, or why don't we go to the Woodland Park Zoo instead of going to Safeco at this point?
Yeah, see, where I luck out is I live 2 minutes from the train station. The train station lets off right at the stadiums.
Nice.
So, I don't, it's only a half-hour drive depending on traffic, obviously, but having that is much better to try to drive to a stadium.
Definitely.
Everybody knows that. So.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, why don't you go ahead? You've got some free agent type stuff you wanted to talk about before we get to our the bulk of our program, which is going to be the Dream Cards. Go ahead.
Okay. So, right now, what I have is the notable free agents that are still out on the market, as far as Jake Arrieta, Hosmer, Darvish, etc. There's not a lot of movement, period. I mean, everybody knows that just by watching the games or watching MLB and stuff like that. Arrieta, so far, apparently, I can only find 2 teams that have been interested in him, and that's been between the Brewers and Phillies. There's a possibility he could end up back with Chicago. Eric Hosmer has made it very clear that he wants at least a 7-year deal. There's a couple of teams that have made offers to him already, but the years aren't where he wants them. The Padres, the Padres have actually made an offer to him for $140 million. And the Royals actually made another offer to him for $147. Now, the biggest problem is going to be whether he wants to take it by the year or if he's going to try to hold off on that. But one of the other notes that I had is the Royals actually just made a trade that might actually bring Hosmer back to Kansas City by trading off Hosmer to the Athletics.
Brandon Moss.
What did I say?
Hosmer.
oh, sorry. Yeah, they traded off Brandon Moss to the A's. So there's a very, very good possibility that the Royals and Hosmer could work something out. As far as Darvish, right now there's 6 teams that have been noted as interested for him and trying to work something out with them. The Brewers, Cubs, Twins, Rangers, Yankees, and the Phillies. I highly doubt he's going to end up with the Yankees. they're trying to do a lot of other things as far as getting Machado through trade. They're you're talking about a lot of money for the Yankees to keep working out for other players. I personally think he's going to end up either with the Twins or possibly the Rangers. The Twins have the money to spend. Rangers, obviously, he's been there for quite a few years already. So, hometown type thing, he might go back there for that. JD Martinez, the only team that I've been able to find that's been interested in JD besides Arizona is Boston. Not sure how well that would work out. I know there's a lot of talk about Martinez going back to Arizona because of the numbers that he had. I believe it was 20 plus home runs in 62 games, something like that, as soon as he got traded to Arizona. So he, as far as his career, numbers wise, he might want to look with staying there. Moustakas, apparently the Cardinals are trying to pick him up. Todd Frazier, the only person I've heard about Frazier is the Mets and possibly the Yankees. Melky Cabrera, looks like he probably will be going back to the Royals, but the Orioles, Marlins, and the Pirates have been talking to him. And that's all I've been able to find as far as free agency.
Awesome. Well, that's great stuff. Yeah, Arrieta, JD Martinez, Mike Moustakas, all those guys still out there. And spring training starts in just later this month, guys. Pitchers and catchers report. Today's the 2nd of February. It's Groundhog Day. Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow. So we're in for 6 more weeks of winter and 6 more weeks really before we get to play MLB The Show.
Yeah.
Probably 7 or 8, actually. But, yeah.
But I did also find out any Marlins fans, they don't have to worry about Real Muto going to the Nationals because they picked up Miguel Montero. He's going to be actually trying to go for the backup job behind Matt Wieters.
In Washington, yeah.
Yeah. And Andrew Susak was traded to the Orioles for a player to be named later.
Uh-huh.
So, other than that, there hasn't been a lot of movement. So, it's awfully quiet.
Awfully quiet. Yep. I would imagine by in the next week or so, we're going to be hearing quite a bit more as teams have their pitchers and catchers report and get started with spring training.
Yeah.
All right. So the bulk of the program here over the next 35 minutes, we want to talk MLB The Show 18, which is something that we would like to do weekly on Baseball McJustice. If you guys did not see it on MLB The Show's official Twitter page earlier this week, they released some information with a GIF image that shows that this coming Monday, the 5th, they will finally have an official trailer to be played. So I'm sure everybody's probably going to see it about 69 times, maybe, by the time Baseball McJustice is back on the air next Friday. But be sure to tune into that. They didn't release a time, and I'm sure everybody's going to get a chance to see it. That is coming on Monday. But until then, we put together a list of 10 players that we would like each. 10 players. We went over them just briefly right before we went live. There's only 1 or maybe 2 duplicates on this list. You're busy on the 5th. Yeah, exactly. Dr. Disrespect is back. What we'd like to do now is talk about these particular players. Now, I've got a little bit of extra downtime on my hands, so I went a little ham on this. I apologize in advance to Ice. I know that he doesn't have the time that I have had the last day or so to go through and do this. But what we're going to do is go position by position, and we're going to alternate, so you don't hear one of us talking for 20 minutes and then the other one. But we're going to go from catcher to first to second to third to short. The 3 outfield positions, we're going to hit a starting pitcher. We're going to hit a relief pitcher, a closer. And then we've got a surprise as each of us has an 11th player, somebody that we would like to see. So, if you would like to do the honors, Mr. Ice Mac,
Okay.
you're up.
We'll start off with catcher,
Yes,
as you
please.
said.
Yes.
The catcher that I chose was his All-Star 7 times, 3 Gold Gloves. He only played 10 years. I believe, in my opinion, he had a batting average of 292 as a catcher. I believe he probably would have been one of maybe the top 5 catchers in baseball if he would have kept playing. But he died at a very young age. Thurman Munson with the Yankees. I think he was a complete all-around catcher, hitter, called games, defense was great. I mean, if I were to guess a number for him as far as a card wise, I'd probably put him at about a 96, 97. More hitting than power, but I think he would definitely be a nice card to have in the game.
All right. So Thurman Munson it is for Ice Mac at catcher. That's a really good one. And so I've done this. Like I said, I've had a little bit of extra time on my hands. So I've done this. I've actually created the player and what their attributes might look like in MLB The Show 18. So I want to tell you about the process because this took quite a bit of research. This took quite a bit of extrapolation based on not only numbers, but he's LOLing. I see this.
No, Rio said he said he's not gonna lie. He had to
Google him. Okay. This took quite a bit of preparation and this took quite a bit of research. But what I'm gonna do is kind of lay out for you guys how I went about doing this. This is the methodology. Okay. I went and grabbed 3 random position players and 3 mostly random pitchers and tried to get a baseline of how versus right splits, their contact power, how all of those numbers were generated. Some of them I didn't have an exact answer, so they were kind of a way for me to project. And so I took a look at splits for Ted Williams. Let me pull up my spread. I created a spreadsheet too. That's how nerdy as hell I am. I took a look at Cal Ripken and Brooks Robinson and Ted Williams, guys. The 1991 hardware Cal Ripken, I took a look at him. He's the 99 overall that we're aware of. The hardware Brooks Robinson from 1964, and also the Ted Williams, who was the overall collection reward that I just got this week, by the way, when I finished the Forever event at 100 wins. So I'm proud as hell about that, by the way. I did it all organically. So I took a look at those 3 cards, and I looked up their individual statistics for that particular season as to why they were awarded a certain attribute number. And I tried to then recreate that. And I'll tell you that the first guy that I had here, and I'm going to go ahead and switch screens, but I'll come right back. The first guy at catcher that I decided that I wanted to make was Ivan Rodriguez. Pudge Rodriguez.
A lot of people are gonna be happy about that.
Yes, Pudge Rodriguez. So I want to break down these stats individually for you here. Pudge Rodriguez, as you can see, Pudge hit 333 against right-handed pitching that particular season. This is the 1999 MVP season for Pudge Rodriguez. I gave him a 94 versus right-handed pitching because he batted 333 against righties and 325 against lefties. Yes, I do have way too much time on my hands these days. The power numbers, I pretty much used slugging percentage. And he had a 570 slugging against righties and 509 slugging against lefties. So that's the 85 and the 80. Plus the 95 vision. I used a version of OPS, which is on-base plus slugging percentage, and gave him a 95 vision. Now the plate discipline wasn't quite as good. More or less, I took a look at how many times they walked, how many times they struck out, what's the ratio between them, and factored in a couple of other things that didn't have anything to do necessarily with plate vision. So I gave him a 37 and a 28 in that regard for clutch, because he only batted .225 that season, believe it or not. He batted .332 overall with 35 home runs and 113 RBIs in 1999 when he was the American League MVP. Not exactly the Pudge Rodriguez that I think a lot of people remember, but he hit 35 homers and drove in 113. He also stole... Did I put stolen bases? He also stole 25 bases, which is why I have him at 60 speed. He was caught 12 times. And his arm strength's a guy I've never seen any other catcher really throw like Ivan Rodriguez was. His accuracy was solid. He threw out more runners than he allowed to steal against him. And I have that down somewhere. He threw out... He allowed 34 stolen bases in 1999. 34 stolen bases. He threw out 41 runners. 41 he threw out, 34 stole against him. I don't know what else you can say. That's why I gave him a 99 and a 95. And the fielding as well. I felt like that's a pretty solid number as an MVP for 1999. That is who I selected as my catcher. Back to you, Ice. Over to first.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say, holy shit, do I feel not prepared.
No, it's me having way too much time on my hands.
No, I like that, though. I like that. First base, I'm going to have to go with Jim Thome. Partially being a homer, like we talked about last year, him being in Philly. 5-time All-Star, three-time walk leader. That was something we had actually discussed last week about his hitting.
Yep.
I didn't realize he actually won, or not, there's no award for it, but he led the league in walks for 3 years. And I believe most of them, the two of them were with Cleveland, one of them was with Philadelphia. And again, a great defensive first baseman, great hitting first baseman. I'd probably have him personally probably about 98, 99.
Ooh.
Obviously, a lot of it power, a lot of it hitting, and with his defense, I think that's what would push him up to that high.
Interesting. All right, so first base. So I want to back up a second and let you guys know the general rule that we were, I should have said this up top. The general rule that we were working within was that they must have not had a card in MLB The Show 17, or really had a card in any MLB The Show game. And then we were wide open. Any era, any team, and a kind of a dream card. Who would you like to see? And then we said let's break it down and do one per position. And Will Clark, yes, is already in the game, which reminded me to kind of set the ground rules for you. Okay, first base. My selection at first base is the guy whose record for consecutive games played was eventually broken by Cal Ripken, and that is the Iron Horse himself, Mr. Lou Gehrig.
Which is a great one.
Yes, Lou Gehrig. 99 overall Lou Gehrig. This was his MVP 1936 season. This is a 33-year-old Lou Gehrig. And Lou Gehrig in 1936, he batted .354 with 49 home runs and 152 RBIs. And the way the splits break down, against right-handed pitching, he batted .356. And against lefties, he hit .336. He had a .721 slugging percentage against right-handers, which is why I gave him a 96 in that one, and a .705 slugging against lefties, which is why I gave him a 90. The OPS was 1174, which is why he got a 99 in vision and discipline and that sort of thing. He had a walk to strikeout ratio. Guys, a walk to, you usually hear it the other way around, especially when you hear it from pitchers. He had a walk to strikeout ratio of almost 3-1. 2.83 walks per one strikeout. he walked almost 3 times more than he did strikeouts. Amazing stuff. He walked 130 times in 1936 and struck out 46. Not only that, he scored 167 runs, had 25 hits, 37 doubles, 7 triples, and that slugging on base and OPS, those numbers were just ridiculous for the Iron Horse, and that is where I projected Mr. Lou Gehrig.
I'm sorry, Owen. That is probably the funniest shit I've read all year. How about a postseason Bill Buckner with a
Rips. Yeah, I realized that Lou Gehrig, his rights to actually be in the game would be difficult to get. That wasn't under consideration when we made our dream cards. This was the one that I chose. I will when we're done with this. I know I have a list, and Ice probably does too, of other people that we considered at each position. We'll go through that really, really quickly.
Oh yeah, I can definitely name a couple.
Yeah. Second base, go for it.
This is one that when we went over it, we actually, Craig Biggio, second base, 7-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glover, 5-time Silver Slugger Award. Personally, I think he was a very underrated second baseman. Also being a catcher. Great power, great hitting for a second baseman. Number-wise, I never really thought of it too much with him. Probably about 96, hitting, power, fielding, plus being able to play more than one position. I think that would be pretty much fair with him.
Any particular year you had in mind? Because I've got one.
Not offhand, no. I could probably guess one offhand, but
okay, all right.
It wasn't one in particular, no.
Well, it's a good thing for you because we duplicated our second baseman. My second base selection also is Mr. Craig Biggio. Let's hit that button. And I got a 99 overall out of him. And that might surprise people a little bit because you wouldn't necessarily think that little Craigie Biggio has as much power as the 74 and 77 that I give him. But listen to this. Biggio was the National League MVP with the Houston Astros in 1998. And during that season, Craig hit .325 with 20 home runs, 88 RBIs. And the 20 home runs might not put him at that level, but he also hit 51 doubles.
Yep.
So his slugging percentage definitely gets a boost there. He had 3 triples. His on-base percentage was .403 to slugging .503. He's one of very few players to have a 300 to slash a 300, 400, 500 between average, on-base, and slugging. 325, 403, and 503 with a 906 OPS. And not only that, but he was hit by a pitch 23 times during the 1998 season. And oh, by the way, he stole 50 bases and was only caught 8 times. So that's where you see the speed at 88 and the stealing at 90 and the base running aggression down at 85. Now, one of the reasons why I did base running aggression a little bit lower was because I tend to believe the base running aggression helps base runners in the game get a good jump more consistently at first base. The higher the number, I think the more consistent their jump is. You see that with players like Lou Brock, and you see it also in effect with guys like maybe an Ichiro who has a lot of speed but not a lot of base running aggression. I think it affects how good of a jump that they generally get.
At least that's how you would think it would work.
Yes, well, I believe that's the way that it works based on playing this game, 2,000 times this year. So I could break it down further than that, but we've talked about Biggio for quite a bit. I will tell you that his splits, righties versus lefties, his numbers, he batted .320 against righties in 1998, .343 against lefties that year, and his slugging percentage was equally righty-lefty at .499 versus righties and .518 slug. He slugged .518 against lefties in 1998.
Yeah, not just that year. I mean, with Biggio altogether, he was just an extra base machine.
Yeah, he did that all. He did all that in the Astrodome. Yes, he did.
I mean, you figure most of his time playing with the Astros was still in the National League. Phillies got to see him a whole lot.
Definitely.
There was a lot of extra bases hit against us. So, he's definitely worth that
Absolutely.
number.
All right, third base, Mr. Ice Mac.
I'm going to go with Scott Rowland. Scotty was the 97 Rookie of the Year, 7-time All-Star, 8-time Golden Glove. Definitely, especially in that era from 97 on, he was definitely one of the better third basemen probably in baseball, if not just the National League. Definitely put up power numbers. The only thing that really hindered Scott was injuries. He did tend to be injury prone towards the end of his career. But he's still definitely, in my opinion, one of the better third basemen to come out of the 90s. Scotty more, if you go by for his card, at least in my opinion, he'd be more defense per offense. I'd probably still rate him at about 96, 97.
Still a diamond, okay.
Yep.
All right, very cool. Well, I went in the way, way back machine for my third baseman. And the reason I say this is because it was kind of difficult to pick a third baseman. If you think about it, we've got Brooks Robinson, we've got Adrian Beltre, we've got a Paul Molitor, Robin. Yeah, I'm not sure if Robin Yount played third now that I'm thinking about it, but we've got a ton of really, really good third. But we even have a Cal Ripken third base card. So
way too many third basemen.
Bill Mazeroski was a guy that I thought about, but you guys know who I picked. Actually, you won't know who I picked. You won't know who I picked. You wouldn't guess it in a million years. You wouldn't guess who I picked for third base, because it is a man by the name of Frank Home Run Baker, who played for the Philadelphia Athletics. This is just a straight legend card, not necessarily an MVP hardware or anything like that. He played for the Philadelphia Athletics, and I grabbed his 1912 season as the example to use here. Frank Home Run Baker led the league with 10 home runs and 130 RBIs that season. He was called the original home run king. This is before Babe Ruth. Frank Home Run Baker. He batted .347, had a .404 on-base percentage, .541 slugging. He had 40 doubles and 21 triples to go along with his 10 home runs. And he also stole 40 bases and was caught 26 times. So you're going to get some speed, you're going to get some slugging. I have no idea what ballparks he was playing in that he couldn't hit it out of, but apparently he found the gap and he could run for days. So we've got a 94 overall, left-handed hitting, right-handed throwing third baseman, Frank Home Run Baker. This is his age 26 season. The guy from Maryland, 5'11", 173 pounds, and I doubt that you guys had any idea that a guy like that existed. How about some shortstops, Ice?
Shortstop, I'm going with Alan Trammell.
Good pick.
6-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove, 3-time Silver Slugger, and 84 World Series MVP. Just an all-around ball player. Not ridiculous power, not ridiculous hitting, not ridiculous fielding. He was just somebody that got it done in every aspect of the game. Trammell, I would obviously, if I were doing a card for Trammell, it would be a postseason card, being World Series MVP.
Okay.
With that card, I'd probably go 97 all around. And again, like I said, he's an all-around ball player, so all the numbers would be just about even.
Nice. And yeah, as Orioles mentions, Trammell will be inducted this summer in the Hall of Fame as somebody who was picked by the Veterans Committee, and something that we mentioned last week here on Baseball MacJustice.
Also well-deserved, because he had a great career. He was an underrated shortstop. So.
All right. Well, one that is not an underrated shortstop, and one that I know that our community, the MLB, the show community, has been asking for since he retired. one that will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. We did not go into the way, way back machine for this one. I went ahead and tip your cap to the captain here. Tip your cap to the captain, Mr. Derek Jeter. Jeter, number 2. I had to throw that out there. This is what I would imagine a 1999 All-Star version of Derek Jeter would look like. I've got him at 96 overall. This is his age 25 season. 6'3", 195-pounder, batted .349 that season. Hit 24 home runs and drove in 102. 438 on base, 552 slugging average. He stole 19 bases and was caught 8 times. So he's one that you would necessarily think would be up a little bit. He's got good contact. His power is about average. I might have even given it a little too much. But he also struck out 116 times, and he walked 91 times, which leads to the good numbers in discipline and clutch. Clutch, definitely clutch. This was something that I wanted to bring up. But one of the ways that I measured clutch was by looking at the specific player's batting average when there were runners in scoring position and 2 outs. Now, clutch could be measured in a lot of different ways, and I took some of that into consideration when I was adjusting up one way or the other, including whether the game was close and late. There's a separate category for that. My God, you can lose yourself for an entire day, and I did. But I want to let you know that Derek Jeter, during the 1999 season in which he was an All-Star, batted .394 for the entire season. It wasn't just postseason and things that people remembered Derek Jeter doing. He batted .394 for the entire season with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. And I think that deserves a very solid 96 rating. And I put that in my spreadsheet, and I looked at where these other cards that I had rated in that particular category, and I felt that was a very, very fair rating for him in that category. Fielding, I think a lot of people remember Derek Jeter for spectacular plays, and he did make them. I think he gets a little bit of hit and reaction time, and he made up for it with his ability to field the ball and throw it from pretty much anywhere. But he's not necessarily the best fielder out there, although he's definitely above average.
Agreed.
All right. And that's the infield. The outfield is ridiculously good when you consider all eras. And Ice Mac's got the very first one here.
How do you want to do? You want to just do it by spot?
Go ahead. Just one outfield. Just one of your outfielders.
Okay. The first one I'll go with Ricky Henderson.
Hendu. Not Dave Hendu, though. We're talking about Ricky.
Hey, even Dave was pretty good.
Yeah, Dave. Rest in peace.
10-time All-Star. 1 Gold Glove. 3 Silver Sluggers. 1990 MVP. 12 times stolen base leader per season, and the all-time stolen base leader at 1,406 stolen bases. The thing with Henderson, I would have to put Henderson pretty close. I'd say about 97, 98. He wasn't always the greatest fielder. He's been known to make his mistakes out in the field. But he also made up with his speed. So, obviously somebody like Henderson be at 99 speed, 99 stealing, 99 aggression right off the bat. Had power and could hit pretty much to all fields. So I'd say 97 in that range.
Yeah, I took a look at Ricky. I didn't end up choosing him. I would have taken a little bit earlier in his career, 1982. 1982, as an Oakland Athletic, so he played for about 14 organizations.
Third year, right?
What's that?
82.
82.
Year?
I think this might have been his second year in the league.
Okay.
But the second year in the league, yeah, that was the year that he set the single season stolen base record, which is what, 142 or something like that. It was something absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. He didn't have as much power. He didn't hit for quite as much average. So I don't think that would necessarily be a diamond card, and unless it's a low diamond, but it would definitely be a high gold. And I didn't go that particular route because I knew that there were a lot of outfielders that would more than likely be 99 overall. Ricky, though, would be a fantastic card to add. My first outfielder is known as the Mickey Mantle. 99 overall. This is Mickey Mantle from 1957. The 1957 American League MVP, 99 overall New York Yankees, switch hitting, 25-year-old Oklahoma-born Mickey Mantle, who hit .365 with 34 home runs, 94 RBIs that particular season, and also walked 146 times and struck out only 75. 146 walks and struck out only 75 times.
That's nuts.
By the way, his on-base percentage, .512. He was on base more than half the time that season. More than half the time he came up to bat, he was on base. And just let that sink in for you a little bit. You know how we were talking about how great a 300, 400, 500 slash line was? Yeah. Mickey Mantle in 1957 slashed 300, 500, 600. 365, 512 with a 665 slugging average. Absolutely insane season for Mickey Mantle. 121 runs scored. He also had 28 doubles and 3 triples, and he stole 16 bases, was only caught 3 times.
And I believe a 20-time All-Star.
I can tell you exactly how many times he was an All-Star.
Yeah, I believe it was 20 times.
Mickey Mantle, as soon as my browser loads back up here, Mickey Mantle was a Triple Crown winner, a 3-time MVP, indeed a 20-time All-Star, and a 7-time, let me say that again, 7-time World Series winner.
7 times.
7-time World Series winner. Mickey Mantle was absolutely amazing and would be an absolute crazy card. He is damn near Pepe Alazar. You
pretty much could put him at Pepe.
You could almost. The fielding stats are really difficult to do, but I will give you a little bit of insight as to how I did that if you're curious. Fielding percentage that year for Mickey Mantle was .979, which is why I gave him an 88 in that category. He had 6 outfield assists, which is really not that many comparatively. Right. He had 7 errors. And I don't know if they were fielding errors, like he couldn't catch the ball, or if they were throwing errors. But I docked him a little bit for arm accuracy. I had it right at arm strength, and I dropped it based on how many errors he had. And his total zone defense. It's kind of like UZR, which is the ultimate zone rating, but it was the average above the rest of the league. It compared him to an average, but it's kind of like WAR, but defensive numbers. It was a 1, and an average is 0. So that was another reason why I kept his reaction just a little bit lower. So anyway, there was a little bit of insight as to why I did that. All right. Go ahead. Mr. Ice Mac, outfielder number 2.
Center fielder I picked is going to be Kirby Puckett. 10-time All-Star, 6-time Gold Glove, and 6-time Silver Slugger. When you think of Kirby Puckett, you think of the size of the guy he was and what he could do. He was a big man that could move very, very quickly. Had a lot of pop in his bat. Had a good amount of stolen bases. I mean, he's not crazy stolen bases, but he had his share of stolen bases. And to be able to have 6 Gold Gloves in center field, again, for a man his size, you know he had speed. Kirby, I'd probably have at about maybe a 92, maybe a 93. He definitely had a big arm out in center. He was probably one of the better armed center fielders in that time. Again, with his speed, he's not going to have no 99 speed. I'd probably have him at maybe about 75, maybe 80 speed.
Sure.
Power, probably about 70, maybe 75. Contact up about 80, 85. Vision would be up high. I would think it would be about in that 92, 93 area.
I think that's, especially if you're talking like the 91 season. Well, I think that was the year the Twins won the World Series.
Yeah.
Man, a lot of great memories for Kirby Puckett. His catch that he made in the outfield, the home run that he hit. Oh, we will see you tomorrow night. I mean, I get chills talking about him. He was not quite the Griffey star power, but he was Griffey before Griffey was on the scene.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Chat, you guys are coming up with some great ones. Bernie Williams, Torrey Hunter. I went a way back with this one. Way back machine with this one. And again, probably unrealistic to hope for this card. That's why it's called a dream card. But I went with the Georgia Peach himself, Mr. Ty Cobb. This is Ty Cobb's. This is based off of Ty Cobb's MVP 1911 season with the Detroit Tigers, 99 overall. And if you want to look him up in Baseball Reference, just, catch your jaw before it hits the floor, because the Georgia Peach in 1911 batted .420. And you may need to celebrate a little bit and hear that again. The Georgia Peach batted .420 during the 1911 season. He had 8 home runs, drove in 127 runs, 47 doubles, 24 triples. He had almost 70 extra base hits beyond the 8 home runs that he hit. He stole 83 bases, and records are so incomplete that they don't actually have as many caught-stealing stats in that particular era. That was 1911. But throughout the rest of his career, he was thrown out at somewhere between 25 and 33% of the time, which is why I dropped the base running aggression down to about an 80, because he was aggressive as hell, but he may have overestimated his speed in certain circumstances. He got there most of the time. That's why he was a 90 with 98 stealing. But his jumps might not have been the greatest, or he might have been a little more aggressive than he probably should have. He also had a 1088 OPS, which is why his vision is a 90. And he walked 44 times and struck out 42. His discipline, despite having more walks than strikeouts, I had his discipline right about halfway in between there, because he put the ball in play. He wasn't up there to walk. He walked 44 times the entire season. Yes, he only struck out 42 times the entire season, but he was up there to put the ball in play. He scored 147 runs, which led the league. He had a 248 hits, which led the league. 467 on base percentage and a 621 slugging average. And yes, he was 24 that season. This was Ty Cobb in the middle of an absolute tear and a 420 batting average. Ridiculous. His fielding took a little bit of a hit. He didn't have the greatest fielding percentage. I will go ahead and share that with you if I could find it.
Hey, VMAC, real quick, not to interrupt you. I'll be right back. I'll let you pick the next one.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. I put his arm strength at 90. I put his arm strength at 90 because he had 24 outfield assists that particular year, but he also had 17 errors, which is why I dropped the arm accuracy down to a 65. So his reaction, all that other stuff, that was why, is because of the number of errors and the fielding percentage, which was 960. It's not particularly good for an outfielder. All right, yes, and he was 24 at the time. So Ice needed to step away for a second, and I'm going to change my screen really quickly to give you a look at the third and final outfielder that I picked. And it's the Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays, another 99 overall. Again, another league MVP, the 1954 New York Giants edition of Willie Mays, a season in which he batted .345 with 41 home runs and 110 RBIs, 33 doubles, 13 triples. The stolen base is not a whole lot. He swiped 8 bags, was caught 5 times, He walked 66 times, struck out 57. Another guy with a ratio on the plus side, more walks than strikeouts, got on base at a clip of 411, and his slugging percentage was 667. A guy with a slash line above 300, 400, 600. So Willie Mays, another absolutely amazing season in 1954. I will, let's see, his splits, right-left splits, batted .350 against right-handers, and just .338 against left-handers. So we saw right-handers just a little bit better. Slugging average against righties, .666, and a .688 against left-handers. And his OPS was .1079, which is why I put his vision way the hell up into the stratosphere. So, amazing, yes. And Mays also missed a year due to military service, like a lot of those guys did, including Ted Williams at the time. So, absolutely amazing personality, fielding. I think he's remembered in the '54 World Series. That is his MVP season that this is modeled after. The over-the-shoulder catch, the turn, and the fire at the wall. The say, hey, kid, the Alabama-born, this is his age 23 season in 1954, and Willie Mays checks in as my last outfielder of the group. Mr. Ice Mac, go ahead.
Well, my last outfielder is somebody I don't think a lot of people would guess, but Juan Gonzalez, Texas Rangers, 3-time All-Star, 2-time MVP, and 6-time Silver Slugger. Somebody who was definitely, I guess in a way you could say he was underrated. Not a lot of people. Well, he was popular enough in that time, but he was more than a serviceable right fielder. Gonzalez, I'd probably have it about 91. Definitely a solid outfielder. Good, above average arm. Not the fastest person in the world. Definitely has some power. Vision probably be a little low, but contact and power would be a little higher. So I'd probably have him sitting about 90, 91. I think he was close to 500 Cowboys. I'm not sure if he went over or he was above. I could actually look that up.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Gonzalez. I know Willie Mays hit 660. And while Ice is doing that, I will read off a couple of outfielders' names that I considered, but then stopped because I had my three guys. Stan Musial, considered Stan the Man. Also Yaz, Carl Yastrzemski, who a Triple Crown winner in 1967 with Boston Red Sox. Hank Aaron, would be great to have Hammer and Hank in here. Ricky Henderson, we already talked about. And Roberto Clemente, who finished his career with exactly 3,000 hits. So go ahead on Juan Gonzalez.
Gonzalez had 434, so he's just under. He had 1,400 RBIs, 26 stolen bases for somebody that wasn't that fast. Like I said, he wasn't above average speed. On base percentage 343, slugging 561, and this is all career numbers. OPS 904. So he's definitely a solid ball player. I think he'd be somebody that'd be interesting to have in the game.
Awesome. Yeah, Juan Gonzalez, Ice and I were talking right beforehand, and that was one of the cards that he let me know he picked. And I said, I remember back, and I think it was either 93 or 94, yep. He was at the All-Star break, and he had about 120 or 30 RBIs, and he was on pace to challenge Hack Wilson's all-time record, which I believe the single-season record's like 184 RBIs in a single season by Hack Wilson. Another guy I considered, by the way, just for that purpose.
Some of my other, honorable mentions.
Go for it.
David Justice was one. Bernie Williams was another one.
Mm-hmm.
Darryl Strawberry.
Yep.
Eric Davis.
Yeah.
Those are some of the guys that I also thought about.
Yeah, I think those cards, all the ones that you mentioned, might be a little bit more realistic options than some of the dream cards, the scenarios that we put together. Guys, we're a little bit over the top of the hour, but I think we're going to keep going anyway because we've each got two pitchers to reveal, one starter, one reliever, and then we have a specialty card which we kind of called the troll card, but we didn't really. It's more like the Homer card. I'm a Mariners guy, and Ice Mac's a Phillies guy, and we each went Homer, a Homer card. So you want to start with your pitcher, and I'll follow?
Sure. I went with Steve Carlton. Partially because I'm a Homer, even though he was with somebody else before he was with Philadelphia, but with MLB, there's not that many, in my opinion, good lefty starters, especially the flashback cards. Lefty was a 10-time All-Star, 4-time Cy Young Award winner, 5-time strikeout leader, and he even had a Gold Glove as a pitcher. Definitely one of the most dominant pitchers in his era. I personally, again, this will probably be being a homer, but I'd have Steve Carlton probably at a 99.
Wow.
Even especially the early 80s, even those era, you could take pretty much any year from, I'd say, 80 to 83, maybe 84. Sorry, I'm trying to think. It's the old age kicking in a little bit. I think it was 80 to 83. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball. Phillies went to the World Series 80, 83. He had a lot to do with that. A lot of complete games. He's somebody that could go 9 innings easily. I don't remember the numbers offhand as far as complete games, but I know there was 1 or 2 years he led the league in complete games, at least. But he's somebody I would have probably easily at a 99.
Very cool.
So,
you don't think there's enough good lefties in the game? I got one for you. The big unit.
Well, he's not in the game.
No, he's not in the game. That's right. So let's add one. The big unit, Randy Johnson, again, maybe a little bit of a homer here, but I didn't pick a Seattle season, y'all. I picked Randy Johnson's 2002 season, his age 38 season, if you can believe that. This is the 4th consecutive. This is year 4 of 4 consecutive National League Cy Young Awards with the Arizona Diamondbacks. The 2002 Cy Young Award would be a hardware card if we were going to use terminology that was active in this year's MLB The Show 17. Not sure they're going to keep that or not. You might see the pitch selection and go Randy Johnson with a splitter. Yes, according to Fangraphs, Randy Johnson threw a splitter 1.6% of the time at that particular season. 1.6%. He also threw a changeup 1.6% of the time, but he's known, of course, for his blazing fastball and Mr. Snappy, the slider, in which he threw 54.9% of the time his fastball and 41.8% of the time. You were getting a fastball or you were getting a slider, and you weren't really sure where it was going. But if you're right-handed, it might be landed on your back foot, and if you were left-handed, it might look like it's going to hit you in the backside before it went the other direction. He was absolutely remarkable. He had 260 innings pitched as a 38-year-old in 2002. He started all 35 games, which is why you see the stamina where it's at. 8 complete games. He had 4 shutouts, and he struck out 334 batters. A ridiculous strikeout per 9 of 11.6. 11.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. There really isn't anybody better. That's why his K per 9 is at 99. His hits per 9, he gave up a few. He definitely gave up a few. 24-5 that year. ERA 2.32. And I will let you know what his hit per 9 ratio was.
Well, while you're looking that up, not to interrupt you,
go ahead.
But let's not fail to mention the only pitcher to ever hit a bird in the middle of a game.
In the middle of a game, that's right.
Talk about accuracy.
Accuracy indeed, although the bird kind of got in the way. He allowed almost 7 hits per 9. It was 6.8 hits per 9 inning, which translated carefully. I'll tell you the 3 pitchers that I used as baseline at this one for MLB 17. I took a look and broke down the stats of Ron Guidry, Jack McDowell, and Bob Feller. The hardware Guidry, the 99 Feller, and I grabbed a gold pitcher in Jack McDowell just to get some idea of where some of these other stats might land if they weren't top peak 99 overall stats. So yes, Randy Johnson, an absolute he's one of the greatest of all time, and this was as an Arizona Diamondback and the 4th of his 4 straight Cy Youngs in the National League. And by the way, he did win 1 in Seattle, 5-time Cy Young Award winner in the big unit. There you go.
And let's not fail to mention also, it doesn't matter what team the big unit was on, lefties feared batting against them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. John Kruk, All-Star game.
That's what I was going. All you had to do was ask John Kruk. The only man that I've ever seen that would not stand in the batting box when the pitcher was pitching. So
turned his helmet around and wanted to bat right-handed.
He was a dominant pitcher.
Larry Walker, yes.
Yeah, Larry Walker.
Yeah.
At that time, man, he was crazy with those pitches, man. His fastball, his slider. He had nasty stuff.
Yep, you were going to get either one or the other. I don't know how well that would translate in actual versus another human in MLB The Show, because fastball slider is they both come at you hard. You know that Noah Syndergaard's slider's a little bit, the fastball slider combination from Syndergaard can be difficult. I would imagine that this would be the same thing except left-handed. Plus he's 6'10 and is intimidating as hell. I wish I'd gone to the length to give him long hair, but I just didn't have time to customize all of the appearances of these guys. The attributes were tough enough.
Yeah, I mean, even in the time with me playing, man, I've never faced anybody even taller than I was.
Yes.
I was 6'2" in high school when I was playing.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine that height coming at you off the mound.
No, because by the time his landing foot lands, he's at the bottom of the damn pitching mound.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that rubber's 60 feet 6 inches away. You take 6 feet away, and that's where the ball's being released. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yes, insane. All right, go ahead with your reliever.
Again, you and I talked about our picks. It's kind of funny how they went. I went with Trevor Hoffman, 7-time All-Star, 2nd in saves, 601, career 2.87 ERA. Although it's not the lowest, 2.87 ERA is an insane earned run average for a reliever. Doesn't matter if the closer or setup guy, long reliever, it doesn't matter. It's still to average that in the length of career he had it's definitely a good pick in my choice.
Definitely.
Or in my opinion.
Another guy who was just recently elected into the Hall of Fame too.
Yep. And again, like we talked about earlier, I'm not saying he should have been picked right away, but deserving. I personally, I don't know where I'd have his numbers at. I really don't. Maybe about 95, 96 maybe. He was definitely dominant during his time. I really didn't follow him that much. But as far as dominant pitchers during, career-wise, he was definitely one of the top ones. I almost went your route, but again, Yankee. I don't mean to put it out there, but
Yankee.
But yeah, I'd say about 95, 96. I'd probably have Hoffman at.
All right, sounds good. And I think it's time for the big reveal on my closer.
Even though I kind of gave it away.
That's okay. All right. I wish I had Enter Sandman queued up, because this would be the time, right? This would be the time to show what a Mariano Rivera card could potentially look like if he were to be an MLB The Show.
I can only imagine.
I left him at 92, and I'm not looking at overall when I'm doing these attributes. I was doing the attributes based on what I believed they were comparative to similar players and what their attributes were. I think the stamina hurts him a little bit here. The fielding might, the control might. But Mariano Rivera, this is a 2004 All-Star version of Mariano Rivera. He's 92 overall, New York Yankees. He's got all-time records, guys. 952 games finished in his career. 952 games finished. A lot of people have never played in 1,000 games. He's finished almost 1,000. 652 saves in his career. Number one, surpassed Trevor Hoffman toward the end of Mariano's career. He was 4-2 in 2004 with a 1.94 ERA. He saved 53 games in 57 opportunities. Finished 69 games that particular season. He only pitched 78 2/3 innings, which is why the stamina is where it is. And in those 78 2/3, he allowed a grand total of 3 home runs. Just 3 home runs for the entire year of 2004. That is a 0.3 home run per 9 inning breakdown. He walked 20 and struck out 66. So he's a better than 3-to-1 ratio in that category too. But his walks per 9, he was a little wild at times. And his control, he threw quite a few pitches. This is his age 34 season. 7.6 strikeouts per 9, 7.4 hits per 9. He actually walked 2.3 batters per 9 innings. So, average in that regard. Fangraphs broke down his pitches into a fastball, a cutter, as number 1 and number 2. He either threw a fastball or he threw one that cut. And then he also very, very occasionally threw a slider at 3.8% of the time. And he threw that particular season 0.4% of the time he threw a changeup. I don't know exactly how many that works out to, but it wasn't very many. The average velocity on the changeup was only 82.5 miles an hour. But get this, the cutter was a fastball. The cutter averaged 93 miles an hour with sick movement, and the fastball was only half a mile an hour faster at 93.5. So the movement and the break on that cutter really is the... Think Kenley Jansen without the really weird delivery and probably a little bit even more movement on the cutter. It's either a fastball or a cutter that he's got. And that is... that's pretty disgusting, if you ask me. And if you use him like people potentially use him in the show, I'm sure that you would use the slider and the cutter or the slider and the changeup a hell of a lot more than what Mariano actually did, because he was a fastball or a cutter guy, and that was it. And the fact that he was able to get away with that, basically with the 2 pitches, and be as good as he was with the straight one and one that had nasty movement on it, I don't know. Maybe he really didn't throw a slider. Maybe he did not throw a slider 3.8% of the time. Maybe that the cutter just moved so much that Fangraphs picked it up and made it a slider. That's my guess. So that's a fairly accurate, at least what I believe to be a representation of what an All-Star Mariano Rivera card from 2004 would look like. Ice.
And just imagine too, not to cut you off. His main pitches were the fastball cutter.
Yep.
You imagine using that changeup at 82,
along with a fastball and a cutter in the video game. Lights out. Forget it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a done deal, man.
Yeah.
Done deal.
Definitely. All right, we've each got one card left to reveal, and we're quite a bit over, so I think we're done with this.
You're going first this time.
I'm going first this time. Okay,
Yep.
All right. Well, I saw his name pop up in chat just about 10 minutes ago.
Oh.
I did see his name pop up about 10, maybe 20 minutes ago now. Mariner, outfielder, 1996 All-Star. And I want to make sure that I do this the proper way. You caught me off guard because I thought I was going to have a chance to set this up properly.
Nah, I was letting you go first.
That's okay. That's okay. But let me pause whatever background music that you may or may not have even been able to hear. And I am going to set this up the proper way, my friends. Here we go.
I heard a little something.
You hear a little something?
A little something.
A little something here. Alright. If you guessed, it's Jay Buhner. He's bad to the bone.
Wow. Oh, I forgot all about him, man.
It's the Bone. Jay Buhner.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Right.
I got you beat, but that's nice though. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So while we're talking, so let me set up Jay Buhner here once I get my other scrreen up. Come on, B-Mac, where's your screen? Again,
wow.
you caught me slightly off guard. I was going to set it up.
You caught me off guard. That's nice. I like that.
Yes, the Bone, Jay Buhner, guys. Jay Buhner. I have him as an 85 overall, which is a gold, and I think that was a really great representation of the attribute distribution and the way that I was able to do it, which I think is why I really nailed some of these cards, even though they were like mostly 99s. I get that. But again, dream scenarios. I want to lay out why I had them at certain areas. Jay Buhner's splits that year, I gave him a 60 contact against right-handers because he batted only 262 against right-handers. But he hit 304 against lefties. And he slugged 533 against righties and 640 against lefties. So you see the numbers going up. His OPS was 096. And this is a guy who, in his All-Star season in 1996, I believe his lone All-Star season, he hit 271, he hit 44 dingers, drove in 138 runs, and hit 29 doubles in the Kingdome, which was a very small ballpark and one that I remember very fondly as a kid. He didn't have any stolen bases. In fact, he was caught once, which is why you see the speed and stealing a base running there. But Buhner had a cannon for an arm in right field. He threw out, let's see, how many outfield assists did Buhner have that particular season? He had, I know I wrote it down. I think he had 9. He had 9 outfield assists from right field that particular season, had 3 errors with a fielding percentage of .989. So that's why I got the fielding and the arm strength and the accuracy where we're at. And his reaction isn't the best, but it's average, and he's also going to struggle to get to some balls in the gap because of his 48 speed. But he was fairly well protected playing at the Kingdome off the AstroTurf. The ball bounced really high. He could hit that out-of-town scoreboard that was in right field, and this man could hit bombs. He could hit bombs, and I would love to see him in the show because he had a very, very unique batting stance that I would love to be able to recreate that open stance with the hands going back and forth and the way he waved the bat around. Jay Buhner is my homer pick and my final card. How about you, Ice?
All right, so again, I brought it up in my stream. We talked about it. I had one person that was able to guess it. There was a trade made between the Cleveland Indians and the Philadelphia Phillies in 1982. A lot of people aren't going to remember back then because a lot of you guys are younger. The pick I have was Von Hayes. Philadelphia traded Julio Franco for Von Hayes. Von Hayes ended up being what a lot of people in Philadelphia called a major disappointment because he was touted to be the next big thing compared to what Julio ended up being. Julio wasn't a huge power hitter. He was more of a contact per power. And Julio actually, a lot of people know, lasted much, much longer. One thing me and B-Mac were just talking about was apparently Julio Franco played up until he was 57 years old. Not in majors, but playing baseball in some form. Von Hayes ended up being a 5-time All-Star. He was in MVP voting 5 times. Or actually, no, 1 time, I'm sorry. He was a much better power hitter compared to Julio. Von Hayes only played 10, 11 years. Ended up having about 143 home runs. Julio Franco's played, obviously I'm being sarcastic, probably about 30 years. And maybe has 20 home runs more. Um, all in all, I think Von Hayes had a very decent career as a baseball player, but nowhere near what he was touted to be. Coming out of Cleveland, he was touted to be a 320 hitter, 30 home runs, 120 RBIs a year, and he never even came close. His best season was 305. His final after 12, I'm looking at it now, is 12 years. His final batting average was 267. So I would have Von Hayes as a Philly card, probably at an 84, maybe 85. Right at that border, silver gold.
High silver, low gold, yeah.
Yep.
Good.
He's above average outfielder, but his hitting just never panned out to what it was supposed to be. So that would be my quote unquote troll card.
It's more of a homer card than it is a troll card.
Yeah.
Well, this was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun to put together. I tell you, I will let you know a couple of other names that I considered but did not ultimately build out. Mike Piazza at catcher, Jimmy Fox, Hank Greenberg at first base, Rogers Hornsby. I even considered Brett Boone as my homer card there at second base. Nomar Garciaparra at shortstop. I went over the outfielders already. And for relief pitchers outside of Trevor Hoffman, I wanted to get a 1953 Hoyt Wilhelm, and I started to put the Hoyt Wilhelm card together. He was a reliever in 53 with the New York Giants. I couldn't find any pitch effects to go along with it, and I was running out of time to look up to see which pitches he actually used, because you're going to really have a hard time building a pitcher card in this game if you can't accurately portray which pitches that he used. So
I have two others that I didn't mention.
Go for it.
Besides the outfielders, catcher Mike Scioscia.
Nice.
Obviously one of the brutes of the catcher. Always stood in front of the plate. He didn't care if he plowed into him. It was what it was. My first baseman, the second one, again, it was tough because, again, I kind of went the homer way and went with Jim Thome, but the other one, probably my secondary, would have been Frank Thomas. Obviously the Big Hurt was a monster even during the same era as Jim Thome. Thomas ended up doing pretty much a split between DH and first base. But obviously Thomas was more known for his hitting, his power, than he was for his fielding. So that's why I kind of went the Thome route.
Sure.
My troll card, because we were, when we talked about doing this, we were talking about the Mendoza card.
Yep, Mario Mendoza. We were going to come up with a common. Yep.
The Mendoza line.
Right. Exactly.
I had quite a few of them. But again, the other one was a homer, and it was Charlie Hayes.
Oh, okay.
Third baseman for Philly.
Yep.
Touted to be an excellent third baseman. He came up, played better than Maikel Franco did. But he shit the bed pretty quick. So, lack of better words.
Sure, of course.
There could have been many other guys we both could have went with for that card, the quote unquote troll card. Personally, I like how we both went the homer route.
Yep.
But it could have went many ways.
Definitely.
So.
All right. Well, unless there's anything else, I think we'll go ahead and we actually went more about an hour and a half. We went way over. But we wanted to get those news and notes and talk a little bit about Chief Wahoo and some of the speed up and free agent news before we got to this stuff. So that's why we went a little bit over today. The good thing about this, there are no commercials, and we can kind of talk as long as we please. So I think unless Ice, you got something else you'd like to talk about.
The only other thing I have to say, guys, check out the Discord for me and BMAC for this channel
For
for the
Baseball
podcast.
MacJustice. Yep, we have a separate Discord channel. Yep.
If you guys want to have any, if you have any questions for us, you have anything you want to ask us, or if you guys have any suggestions or anything like that, please feel free to jump onto that. Messages. We might not get back to you right away, but we'll definitely get back to you about it. So make sure you guys hit that up. And besides that, Marty, thank you. Go Birds.
Super Bowl prediction for this weekend.
Philly 27-24.
And I will go New England 31-27. All right. For IceMac 78, I'm BMac Redbeard. Thanks for tuning in to Baseball McJustice. IceMac is going to continue over on his individual channel, IceMac 78, with MLB The Show 17. I am going to end this stream and let it archive, and then I will be back probably within 30 minutes or so, and I will also be streaming MLB The Show 17. Thank you guys for joining us. This will be archived both on this platform, and it will be up on YouTube probably by Monday on both of our channels. Have a great weekend. Enjoy wherever you are on Super Bowl Sunday. Please drive responsibly if you are somewhere where consumables are going to be.
Go Birds.
Have a great night.